Remember, what you are seeing is a preview. I just want to put that on Front Street. One more time now, what you are seeing is a preview. Oh, hey, sorry I didn't see you there. I think it's time for another episode of the Lodi Files, so let's jump into it. So today's clip comes from an interview that I have legit not looked at since I shot it 11 years ago. You know, what happens is you shoot the tape, you digitize it, or, you know, I'm already thinking about like, okay, got to get to the next one. Once I have everything, I'll just start, chopping things up. Terrible workflow. So it was really cool to open this up and review it after so many years. It's noteworthy for a few reasons. The interview takes place in Sal Bee's kitchen, where we would later shoot Rock and Roll Cooking with Sal B. Sal lived on Grove Street, down the block from where Jerry and Doyle grew up, as well as down the block from where the Misfits used to rehearse. For a time, I was coming to Lodi quite often to shoot with Sal, and I would always be on Grove Street. His house is right over there. That's Sal B's house.
Welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll Cooking with your host, Sal B.
I first met Sal at Chiller Theater in 2011. I don't remember why I was there. Right, now I remember why I was there. I was there because Bobby Steele was getting married to the mother chick. It was a weird sort of scene. He was wearing a sky blue tuxedo, kind of like, something that you would see in Dumb and Dumber. He had his cane, a top hat. He was so happy. I was happy for him. And he was marrying the mother chick. Like, the mother chick. What do I mean by the mother chick? I mean the chick from the Danzig video for the song Mother, the original one, not the Mother 93 video. Her name was Jill. And she used to have a thing with Danzig, if I'm not mistaken. So it's kind of interesting. That's a whole other interesting set of parallels right there. So I went with Dave Street. It was myself and Dave Street at Chiller. Was that the year later? No. It was definitely, I can't remember. It was a year that they had a Misfits room, right? They had a Misfits room.
All of these other people that are here in this room are ex-members of the band.
All put together in one room. You had Doyle.
Does this get in the way?
I don't see it.
You don't see the mic?
No.
You don't see the mic?
No.
Oh, okay. I just thought I'd ask that.
Michael Graves.
How would you move? I mean, I've never seen your performance, and maybe the world would like to know.
I don't do backflips or anything, but think of a rag doll meets Michael Jackson throwing some Elvis moves.
Oh, that's nice.
Dr. Chud, Bobby Steele, Erie Vaughn, and Mike Hideous were all in the same room together. And what was also interesting was those three guys, Graves, Doyle, and Chud, they hadn't been together since they did an impromptu Misfits 95 reunion, 3/4 of which Jerry only wasn't there. There was definitely a weird vibe in the room for sure. That was also the day I met Bobby Bloodfeast, who was Michael Graves' assistant, producer, handler type guy.
We got the fifth member of the band here, Bobby Bloodfeast, who's in charge of all of Michael's websites, and he'll be doing merch on the tour, right, Bob?
Yup.
And that's how I ended up working with those guys later down the road. But the other guy I met was Sal B.
Hi, are you an enemy? Are you an enemy?
I am.
Are you an enemy of the people?
A brutal enemy.
Are you an enemy of the people?
I'm a dead human. And we're fun. Dead people are fun.
And maybe there's a crack in the skull that lives over here.
And Sal B, Sal B had his band called Sardonica, and Sardonica used to open for the Misfits in the 90s. He was also on the Misfits road crew. And so, and the thing about Sardonica is they're like kind of like a, I don't know, like a biker punk kind of band. At least they were. And then due to their association with the Misfits, Sal started to do this ghoul makeup. So he was all dressed up.
Some little blood droplets flying through the sky, wherever the blood wants to take you.
He would do this from time to time. He would paint his face white and have like all this blood dripping down. He liked to put a pickaxe mark on the top of his bald head. I knew who he was, and I knew that he was around back then. Frank, he had been at the first show. I figured he would make for a pretty good interview because he was part of the inner circle back then. At least, I mean, he grew up with those guys. He lived down the street from them. He sort of exits the picture around 81. From 81 to 83, he's not really around. As he himself would say, he was preoccupied with a girlfriend, which sort of took him out of the picture of what was happening. But he had been at that first show at CBGB's, just to give you some sort of understanding. Sal and I met at his house. We did this interview. Sal also has a dog named Luke. You're going to hear him barking in the background.
And here is Luke, our sous chef. A delicious little pit bull himself. Today's special guest is Dr. Chud.
And it's the Merp, who's the drummer for Sardonica, as well as he was the drummer for Christ the Conqueror.
Well, something smells really good, man.
And
What a great entrance.
and
Sorry about that.
bro, put this back up.
Oh, forget it. I ain't that.
Barely cut it.
Well, you gotta open the check. 1, 2. Check. 1, 2.
He shows up to calm Luke down. That was my first time meeting the Merp.
Now, Merp, as we know, was in the band Christ the Conqueror with Jerry and Doyle from the Misfits.
The only man with a Christ the Conqueror tattoo.
And the record had some problems. It was never released properly. But this is the guy that performed on that album. And we got him right here on Rock and Roll Cooking with Sal B.
Sal's cooking the best. The best. 3 times a week I'm here eating. I told him years ago we should open up a restaurant. He don't want to listen. He just wants to keep on rocking and rolling, which is fine. But he's got a talent that's God-given, and man, oh man.
Fun fact, the Merp almost appears on Walk Among Us and almost became one of the Misfits, but his wife-to-be was not having it, and he had to choose between joining the Misfits or getting married, and he chose to get married.
If you could play drums all day long, would you?
Absolutely.
And I will tell you, he is no longer married to this day. So this clip might get used in the thing, but I figured, it'd be interesting to sort of take a look at it because of the set list that's featured in it. I asked him about Doyle's first show, which was a big show for the Misfits. They were beginning to develop this sort of reputation in those middle years from like 79 to like 82 that they would only come out on Halloween. A lot of people that I would interview would tell me that.
Yeah, they only come out on Halloween.
Which we know is not true. I mean, we've seen all the many, many, many shows that they would play. But, from 79 to 81, they seldomly played. Suddenly it was, oh yeah, the Misfits, they only play live on Halloween. And they had made a really big splash in 1979 with that Irving Plaza show. They had the Mad and Tish and Snooki open up for them. It was for Club 57 and the Monster Movie Club. Now the year is 1980 and it's happening all over again, except Screamin Jay Hawkins is headlining, but of course they have the Misfits, the perfect Halloween band, as opening support. Now, what's interesting, I've asked other people about the Lamb's Heads that were around this time, or people who had been to the show, and nobody seems to recall there being Lamb's Heads. But I've heard Glenn talk about the Lamb's Heads in a Rolling Stone interview, And here you'll hear Sal talking about the Lamb's Heads. I'll let him explain it in the clip. As I mentioned, this was Doyle's first show at the age of 16. It's his first professional show, and it's his first show with the Misfits. It's his coming out party, his debutante ball, if you will. What a perfect time to open for Screamin Jay Hawkins on Halloween. Bobby Steele also showed up to this show under sort of really sad circumstances. This is when Bobby officially found out he was no longer in the band. I asked Sal about Frank Zappa or Kenny because there were other stories that feature both. More on that another day. As you'll see behind Sal B, for his interview, he put up the set list from that show. But what's so cool about it is the songs that they were playing as early as Halloween 1980. So for the set list, you got 20 Eyes, I Turned Into a Martian, Horror Hotel, Ghoul's Night Out, London Dungeon, Die Die My Darling, All Hell Breaks Loose, The Devil's Whorehouse, Hate Breeders, Night of the Living Dead, and We Are 138. Now, a few months prior, over the summer, they would enter the studio to begin working on what would have been their true first album after Static Age imploded. It had a tentative title, 12 Hits from Hell. We've talked about it on the Streaming Evil Live show a whole bunch. But what's interesting is the omission of several songs that were recorded in August of 1980, but get no stage time for Halloween. Now, they were support for Screamin Jay Hawkins, so they might not have had as much time as they had previously for the 1979 show. Wow, that leads me down a whole rabbit hole. So that's interesting. They make a choice not to play certain songs from 12 Hits from Hell. Those songs are Halloween, Vampira, Skulls, Astro Zombies, Violent World, and Halloween 2. It's weird to think that Die Die My Darling was essentially being played live almost 4 years before it would be officially released as a single. Besides London Dungeon, Night of the Living Dead, and We Are 138, all of these songs could be brand spanking new to the band, having only been recorded over the summer, meaning they might have just been very freshly written. I could seriously go on and on about this stuff. All right, enough talking. Let's roll the clip. Wow! And normally this is the part where we would see the clip or soundbite from the interview outtakes. That other part is only available on Patreon with the rest of the growing library of these exclusive episodes. I'm really sorry if that felt like a tease, but hey, hold on. It was right on Front Street. In the title of this video, it does say preview. This is meant to be a sample of what things are like behind the veil. The video content that accompanies it really depends on the subject. So if you really like minutia and details and you really like the commentary that surrounds them, please consider joining the Patreon. Not only are you going to gain access to a library of content that can't be seen anywhere else, but you are investing in this channel and the future creation of more content. I'll see you real soon. Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jeff. So I've decided to make a Patreon. What is Patreon? I don't know how to define a Patreon. Let me look it up. Patreon is a membership platform that makes it very easy for creators to get paid for the things that they're already creating. I want to do it full time. I want this to be my full-time job. In my efforts to make that happen, I've set up this platform. Is it going to work? Is it going to be successful? I don't know, but I would rather try and crash and burn than not try at all. The goal is to create enough passive revenue so that I can continue to do this full-time, uninterrupted. Why? Because I love to do this. I love creating content. I love making videos. I love shooting films. I love doing podcasts. In case you couldn't tell, I love to talk and I never shut the fuck up. So right now I've kept the Patreon incredibly simple. There's 2 tiers, and that may change in the future. The Murdergram is a simple way to extend support for all of the hours and hours of free content on the channel for nothing more than $1. 38 cents goes to Patreon. What's $1.38, eh? It's less than a cup of coffee, but it's a great way that you can show support for very little effort. When you divide that $1.38 by the hours and hours and hours of time spent listening to this endless drivel of content, the dollar cost average works out. Next up is the YouTube casualty for $6.66. The YouTube casualty is loaded to the gills. Enjoy the archive ad-free, as well as ad-free early access to special docu-style podcast videos, music reaction commentaries, and the like, a month before they drop on YouTube, loaded with ads, I might add. You're also going to get exclusive content and behind-the-scenes content that is not available on YouTube or anywhere else. So you get to peek behind the veil. And believe me, there's a couple of choice pieces. Most of all, more than anything, whether you join the Patreon or not, I just want to thank each and every one of you that comes to the channel, that watches all the shows, that leaves comments, that participates, that subscribes. That's really the most important thing. This is just trying to find a way to earn a living as an artist. And with that, thank you for my TED Talk. Join the Patreon, because we need you!
66 cents.